you have to be that way. There are some people that you want to reach, or some audiences that you want to reach, and if you're loud and you're out there, you'll never touch them.
Never get them.
You'll never touch them. And then there are those who you have to be out there to get. So you have to define all of that. And when my brand has defined all of that, I translate it through every communication point, from the internal communications, from your hiring message. When you send a message out saying I'm hiring, I translate it from that point. I translate it through your website. Every word, every text, every word is important, and we're talking about words, choosing the right words to convey the right messages. I can give you one message and use different words, and I think I'm conveying that message, but I'm saying a totally different thing. You have to look at the culture. You have to look at the gender sensibilities. You have to look at the inclusion. You have to look at all of that. Every nuance, religious sensibilities. You have to define all of that, and that has to be carefully curated, so that when you're sending out a message, you're actually saying what you want to say, and you're not putting people off. So those are the steps that I take before I even start doing the writing. The writing is the end of the road. I would have defined all of that. What are your key messages? What are your key sound bites? What must come through in every message? How do you stand? How do you look? How do you carry yourself? What do you wear? All of that is important, because you're talking even through those things that you're doing. When you're making a presentation, what are your expressions? Very, very important. I had someone that I was working with who said, you know what, I don't want to be out there. I'm really shy and all of that. I said, that's fine. I'm not going to change your personality, but you're going to speak to the people that you want to speak to, maintaining your authenticity, but speaking those words that they need to hear that convey the message of who you are. So that's how I go about it.
Amazing. Oh my God.
Build their voice.
I love it. Chidali, you wanted to ask us something?
Yeah.
Did you want to ask us something?
No, carry on. I love how this conversation is going.
Victoria, I like what you just said. And one of my most interesting things to talk about is vocabularies, because it's so easy to say one thing, but because you have a community vocabulary, it can mean so many different things. So a good example is how when Davido says Ichok, it's like his people get it. It's like we get what he's saying. You get, or when Naira Marley comes and he shouts Malians, there is like a community over there, and it means something else to them. So you can say hello, you can say hi, you can say good morning, you can, like, all those things are all greetings, but they have different vibes that they communicate. And so vocabularies have the power to be able to communicate different types of vibe, and that's why people have to be very careful while choosing the vocabulary that they use while communicating with their community. But beyond that, I don't know if you've ever heard about the concept of sound branding. So this one is relatively not new, but I mean, some people have embraced it over the years. It's just like when you turn on your Netflix and you hear that dumb sound, or when you turn on your iPhone and you all those different sounds are sort of like sound branding, and a lot of people are not very conscious that these things are being ingrained into them. So sometimes you don't have to overthink your communication. Like, yes, think it is important, but you need to find tiny identifiers that would make you recognizable, so that when your people hear you, they hear you and they recognize that this is you. And you always want to have a unique voice. So avoid copying, which is something I've seen a lot when people are trying to brand themselves. It's like they just notice that there's this brand that they like. Maybe they like Victoria. They like how Victoria wears her glasses. The next thing, they just want to start wearing glasses like Victoria. And so what you end up doing is that you reinforce Victoria's brand, but you don't create your own niche for yourself. And that eradicates your own brand and just enforces Victoria brand even more in our minds, right? And so what you want to try and do is find unique identifiers. And this leads me to one conversation that I just recently started having with my community. The fact that branding is like, you have to view branding like a human being's life cycle. We're not going to start out perfect. We're not just going to jump and just be like a brand. You're going to grow, and it's okay to grow. Don't just wait to just come out perfect and be ready-made. Show your people your flaws. Like, when you have flaws, be okay with sharing. I mean, my favorite example like this for this conversation is Instagram, and probably even Emanuela. I don't know if you know about Emanuela. the
Yeah, I do.
comedian,
The young
child
girl.
comedian.
Yes.
Yes, and that
Yes.
they started out, if you go to the very first videos, the quality of the camera did not, it wasn't great. I don't want to use the word suck, but it wasn't great. And over the years, you can see the quality of the camera, the acting, the diction improve.
Improving.
And that
Yeah.
growth, you can't buy it in the market. It's like
Exactly.
some fans get personal credits for saying, I was there when Emanuela started. I know when they shot this video. And it's a different kind of community.
Yeah.
So you don't want to start out perfect. You want to start and take your people along with you on your growth. If you feel like, something you guys do is no longer great anymore, and you want to rebrand, or you want to refocus your mission, take us through the thought process that made you decide that you don't want to do this anymore and you want to focus on this other thing. And so just that growth, that journey, it just makes you special. It makes you really, really special. But I think somebody just talked about niching here, and I think that Victoria, we should touch on that. So go ahead.
Yes. Yes, I've seen several comments. Words have power. Absolutely. Every word you speak means something. So be careful. Choose your words very carefully.
Really wise.
You know, don't think that you're just joking. Those things will stick with your brand, and it will take you some time to get rid of that. You know, Blessing talked about growth. Yes, you can grow. You can overcome certain things if you reinforce others. So find your niche identifiers, find your voice, and speak your language. But there's something that you talked about, that's niche identifiers. So you don't have to start perfect, yes, but you must be authentic.
Yeah.
Because people will see through BS. I'm sorry to to speak
It's
French
okay.
here.
It's true. It's true.
People will see through it. Don't try to be who you're not. But saying that doesn't mean that you don't change, you don't transform, you don't grow. Saying that means, like Blessing has already mentioned, don't copy anybody. Find your niche. Feel your niche very well. Own it, right? There's this guy. I remember his name. He takes his shirt off all the time. What's his name? I'll remember. He's a comedian,
Is he
right?
a football star? Is he?
No, he's a
dancer?
comedian. He's a Nigerian comedian.
Brother Shaggy.
Brother Shaggy.
Is that Brother
Thank you.
Shaggy?
But Shaggy,
Yes.
I thought he doesn't even wear shirts. So
He doesn't ever wear shirts. Okay,
Ah.
that's it. So Brother Shaggy is himself. You can't be a Brother Shaggy. Nobody else can be a Brother Shaggy, right?
Right.
So he might not appeal to everyone, but he has his audience.
people.
That's his niche. He's found his voice. Emanuela has found her voice, right? Davido has found his voice. And the Burna Boy gang, he's found his niche, right? So everybody has their authentic person, and they grow. You can look back to where Davido started. You can look back to where Burna Boy started.
Or even
Wizkid. You can look back to where they started, and they've improved and they've grown. The one thing they have been is themselves. They've been themselves, their authentic selves. And after a while, people tend to separate your personality from your product, from your music, from your company, from your product. People will begin to separate that as long as you apply that professionalism and you keep growing and you keep improving and you're meeting a particular need. So it goes back to that. You find that your niche, you hold your niche, you own your space. And what is it to find your niche? Look, everybody cannot do the same thing, but there's enough room for everybody to be to run a restaurant. But your restaurant can be different. Everybody can be a designer, but your design will be different, right? There is something that is special that you saw that no one can do it. Even talking about ideas, sometimes people are afraid to pitch ideas. Oh, if I say this to someone, they might steal my idea. Someone can steal your idea, but
they
the
can
person
steal you.
cannot steal your execution. They can't steal your insight. They can't steal your passion. They can't steal your spirit. They can't steal that vision that caused you to create that idea. And you can always recreate it and change it, right? That's very important to know. So to be effective with your voice, be authentic every step of the way. Learn, continuous learning, grow. Come to people like us, we'll coach you, we'll help you to improve your voice. But that has to be your voice. We're improving your voice. Look, companies are always rebranding. The companies I've worked for have rebranded so many times. They've changed
Even
their
Google.
Google, Microsoft.
Right.
Nestle, we are changing our narrative as the environment is transforming. We're transforming.
Thing that you feel like you're going to execute, and then execute that one thing. Because I noticed when we have all those live sessions, because maybe during COVID I was part of a lot of sessions where we were teaching people a lot, but we're noticing that as much as we thought, people would still come back and ask us the exact same question. And that's probably because there isn't enough execution. And it's difficult for people like me or Victoria to teach you the things we've learned over maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in 1 hour. However, here's what I learned. Sorry, I know this is deviating from branding, but I mean, it's pointless if people don't know how to execute, right? So during COVID, I wanted to learn how to bake bread, and I Googled recipes, and the recipes were like 5 minutes, 3 minutes. It's really short, and it sounded like, oh, baking bread is supposed to be this easy. Why have I been buying bread? And by the time I was executing the baking of the bread, my 3 minutes to 5 minutes recipes became 2 hours, 3 hours activities that I was now doing. And then by the time I finished baking the bread, I felt, oh, good first try. Maybe I should bake without the recipe the second time. And it was a flop. I messed it all up. I poured cold milk in my yeast. And so my yeast never activated. The outside burnt, the inside didn't get ready, things like that. And so then that pushed me to ask new questions. Why didn't my bread rise? Why didn't this happen? Why didn't that happen? All this story I'm telling you is to say that when people teach you what they've mastered over the years in very short periods of time, you need to pick one thing and go and execute it and try. When you try, you would have newer questions, you have newer things to ask about. And then the more you practice, the better you get at it. So you will not learn baking bread from just a 5 minute recipe, just like you would not learn branding from a 1 hour live. But just pick one thing by the end of this course or training or Ignite series and practice. In fact, as your assignments, if you're on this live right now, take a screenshot and pick one thing that you have learned so far and share it when this live is over. Okay. So moving on to niching, still niching. I noticed that a lot of people get stuck trying to figure out, oh, what is my niche? And so because they're stuck, they don't move. They're not doing anything. They're not executing anything. So everybody's just stuck looking at each other like, oh, what is my niche? What is my niche? And then nothing gets done. So I would advise that if you're ever in that kind of situation, the way to figure out your niche is by doing. You may not start out knowing, but the more you do, the clearer it becomes to you. The more you begin to recognize your people's problems. And also asking questions is such a genius, simple thing that I don't know why people don't do. Like, just ask your customers, like, what do you wish we could do better? Interview your customers. I notice a lot of people just assume, like, oh, my customer has this problem. And you go and create solutions in your room without interacting with these customers at all. So, does it work for them? Is this what they like? Is there a better way to do it? So try to engage more with your customers, ask them questions, use Instagram to ask questions. Just ask, what would you guys like to know more? What do you think we could have done better? How do you think this product would serve you better? What extra features should we add? Those kind of questions just sort of make your customers open up to you, and especially if you give them credit for the solutions that you are eventually going to create. And there's also the part where you can, if you're multi-talented, like people like me, you don't have to take only one thing and just be like, oh, I'm going to be a branding person, just that's all. No, your niche can come from the other extra things that you may not monetize, right? So let's assume you're a great dancer. There's this doctor story I heard one time. The doctor was a great dancer and he was a doctor. So the amazing thing he did was he earned himself the title of dancing doctor, because there were people who didn't like him at all because they're like, who is this unserious doctor? Of course. But then people who loved him. It's like, I want the dancing doctor. And that was what made him special, not because he was any extra at the doctoring work, but just because he had that extra personality that made him stand out. So your niche could come from your personality, it could come from your gender, it could come from mixing up two very different things like engineering and art together. It could come from your presentation, it could come from your delivery, it could come from many other places that are not exactly obvious. And I don't want to tell my clean the light story because I feel like I tell a lot of simple stories. I tell lots of simple stories, and sometimes I tend to oversimplify, but the story was about this woman who was a cleaner, and she would clean, and she would ask her women that she cleaned for, like, what can I do better and everything. And then there's this woman who stood out for her and said, clean the lights. Like, when you're done cleaning everywhere, just clean the lights. And that was such an obvious solution, but not a lot of people, in fact, not even in my house, I don't really used to clean the lights. I just recently started doing that after I heard this story. And so I think the woman was trying to teach a different thing entirely. But as soon as I heard the story, that was all that stood out for me. How your unique selling point might be something that is super obvious, but not very obvious to a lot of people. And so just the ability to take a moment, look around you and say, what is so obvious that people are not obviously seeing? It was super obvious that people needed information. It was super obvious people ask questions every day, but not enough people build things like Google to help us figure that out. So think about something that is obvious in your space and add it as an extra point to whatever value that you're offering, or make that the special thing that you're offering. That could be your unique selling point. That could be your niche. So just don't overthink it, sharp, but just always do something. If you can't crawl, walk. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. Just keep moving. I think that's it is so.
Absolutely important, to always execute. I found that the best learning points for me, at least, have been when I'm doing. And because I know that many of us here are talking about communication. How can I have a stronger presence on Instagram? How can I do this and do that? I'll just say one thing very simple. Don't make having a stronger presence on Instagram your target. Make satisfying your customers your target, and that audience will come to you by referrals. It will come organically. That's what will come to you. But you must execute. You must be doing. Okay, so you start out on Instagram and you put out your messages there. And I think Blessing has hits the nail on the head. I was going to talk about language. We've talked about resources. We've talked about time. We've talked about so many things. But there is one thing that is really important, and we've mentioned it a lot of times. Plan your communication. Don't just wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I'm going to say this. I'm going to do that." Make a plan. Have an editorial calendar. Keep it simple. Mondays I'm going to do this. Tuesdays I'm going to do that. Wednesdays I'm going to do that. Or you say once a week, I'm going to do this, but have a plan. And then plan what you want to say. Make sure that it's aligning with what you want to talk about. So when you're building your brand, make sure you're not mixing it or diluting it. Be very consistent with your brand building. Tell yourself, this is what I'm about, and this is what I'm going to focus on. So don't take, I'm a Christian, so I'll probably give you a Bible quote on Monday. On Tuesday, I'm giving you this. And on Thursday, I'm giving you that. There has to be a line that connects all of that. What am I trying to communicate? And it is about who you're reaching and who your audience is and what you're selling to your audience. Are you selling them empowerment? Are you selling them clothes? Are you selling them nutrition? Are you selling them style? What are you selling to them? So it's not the dress, it's not the hair tie, it's what you're selling. What's the experience you're selling? Style. Find your place, find your color, find your vibe as a lady. What makes you rock? Find that. You don't just sell lipstick, sell the color, sell the warmth, sell the, you need to find that. That's
the
very
experience.
important. So thank you. The experience is what you're selling, and make a plan. If your communication is uncoordinated, you don't have any plan, you're just doing it anyhow, you're going to get anyhowness. You know, someone said something to me recently. Said, I mean, and that struck me. Said, it's amazing how randomness is normalized. Random never works. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. Plan A, plan B, plan C. You know, I'm one of those people who probably have a plan Z, right? So this one doesn't work, and I'm very agile. I move. It doesn't work, I let it go. I'm moving on to the next one. Have a plan. Have a plan.
It's the best way. I love that idea that you just talked about, where you can just quickly move to other things. I think sometimes we dwell too much on failure, and we need to be able to separate ourselves, our projects, from who we are as human beings, or from the goals of the business. So even before you start communicating, one of the first things you want to establish is, what are the goals of this thing that we're about to do? What's the business goal? Then what communication goal can we establish to ensure that we hit this business goal, right? But if the thing you're trying is not working, be quick to adapt, to say, okay, what worked? What didn't work? What can we change? What can we do better? And then, pivot. Like, because I think we spend so much time wallowing in sadness that, oh, this thing didn't work. Oh, I have failed, da-da-da. Not necessary. Just like, it's not personal. Just take it up, it not work, okay, move on, right? And I really love that about you. Like, I love that you've been hammering on adaptability. So I had to talk about it.
Thank you. I mean, I saw someone saying customer first. Absolutely, your customer first. Your goal is not about you. Your first concern is not you. It's your customer. Yeah, absolutely.
But you always have to find that intersection. You find, this is my business goal. This is my customer goal. What is that shared value that we can exchange? That's really what you're looking for, because you will never be able to give your customer your best if you're sad, hungry, and suffering and under the bridge. So you have to create a good balance, right?
Absolutely.
But coming back to what you said about communications, it's super important. I see that so many platforms are popping up: Clubhouse, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. You don't have to be on every single platform. And if you're big, you have a team, okay. But even though, I think it would be best to pick your top 2 platforms that are your primary platforms, and everything else could be secondary. In fact, I would advocate for one. Pick one, be strong on one, and it would just spill as you expand. Because depending on who your target audience is, again, if you're, for example, in fashion, I don't think Clubhouse would be the most ideal place to start. You would want to start somewhere that is visual, that gives the experience your audience is looking for. Maybe Pinterest, maybe Instagram. You want to be very, very intentional about the platforms you pick, based on your business goals and your customer goals as well, based on your personality and your customers' expectations from you. And then the thing Victoria said about planning is so important, because what I call them are content pillars, right? The key structures that your content stand on. So let's give a good example. I think it should be a little bit practical. Let's assume that we're selling Victoria's glasses. What should we call it? Yeah, let's call it Victoria's glasses. Yes, we'll keep it like that. Or we can call it Peach Sensation. Okay.
Peach Sensation. Yes.
Oh my God. That's a good name.
What?
That's the brand expert right there.
Oh Lord. So let's call it
Take a moment.
Right?
Take a moment.
And then these glasses, Victoria is strictly, that's also we sell. This glasses in pitch. So how can we make it interesting? Remember, it's such a specific product. So how can we make it interesting, right? We could break it down into three. You want to pick a frequency that you know you can consistently show up in.
Yep.
So if you know you can only show up once a month, do once once a week, do once a week. If you know you can show up twice a week, do twice a week. Don't join Instagram people and do every day when you know you can't keep up with every day. Please, I'm begging you. So pick, let's say 3 days, right? We pick 3 days. Let's say those days are Monday, Wednesdays, and weekends, right? Just for balance sake. So maybe every Monday we're going to show boss chicks wearing these glasses, and then our feature would probably, let's call it maybe peachy boss chicks, right? And the idea of that every Monday would be to interview boss women who are doing amazing things who use our glasses. That's all. We don't. I'm good at this thing.
I'm going to start a glasses business. I'm rebranding it.
Exactly.
Okay, and then the second, maybe every Wednesday would be for us showing you our process, like something that is happening while we're producing, or maybe sketches we made or challenges we had. It's going to be like process. We can call it pitch process. Yeah, it could be pitch process. So we're going to show you process things that we made and all those challenges we made of the business, packaging it, all those things. And then every weekend, maybe we're going to show you inspirations, like different ways you can style our glasses when you're going to work, different colors you can match it up with, how interesting you can make it, and all of that. So 3. In this 3, how you produce, all those things. And then chances are during the consideration phase, they're like, why should I buy Peachy Sensation instead of Ray-Bans? Why? What's so special about them? And you don't want to go and say, buy Peachy Sensation instead of Ray-Bans, because no, never, don't ever do that. So what you want to be able to say is Peachy Sensation versus others. We give you XYZ comfort. We added this extra foam to the corner so it doesn't hurt your ears. And so unconsciously, you're telling people this glass versus, and this sunglasses versus this other glasses, this one will be more comfortable. This one comes in a cute pouch that will be stylish that you can use as a purse. And people wouldn't even know is a glass case, right? Things like that. That's what you're doing with your Process Wednesdays. And then you're also showing them testimonials on Mondays, because people are going to want to see people who have used it. And you're also giving them inspiration that, oh, if boss chicks like Victoria use these glasses, me, I'm an aspiring boss chick. So this is the glass for me. And it's just like that. You have gone through a communication process that is reinforcing your message, reinforcing your brand. Just like through your message, you have shown you are excellent. You have shown an inside, like the inside life, as the musicians will call it. You're showing inside life, which is BTS. You've taken us on a journey. I sort of feel like you are authentic. Everything just works. You've answered my questions, my doubts. Exactly. So that's what your pillars can do for you. That's what planning your content can do for you. And that's also how the kind of rationale you should use when planning your content. I hope this helps somebody out there.
I'm sure it absolutely
Of course.
does. I'm sure it
I'm
absolutely
sure
does.
it does.
That's
That's
I'm sure
bringing
it
it down
does.
to the brass tacks, the content pillars, and all of that. Absolutely right.
yeah.
Yeah, and messaging
But
it
one other
right.
challenge I
Great.
noticed that people have is that when they're talking about their business, still on communication, when they're talking about their business or their product or their service, they focus on features and they don't talk about benefits.
Yeah.
Now, this is key because if you talk about the features, imagine if iPhone came and told us we have XXX megapixels with this chip and that chip that would do
Yeah.
da, da, da. You're not going to buy the phone.
No way.
Versus they tell you this phone will help you take better pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So always like think about how does my service or my product add value to my customer, and then how can I tell them that it does? Like a pen, for example, it has a cover, right? Great. But my pen having a cover just means that the ink is not going to spill on my shirt. So that could be a way to tell me that, oh, but like this pen wouldn't spill on your shirt because it has a cover, as opposed to our pen has a cover, it has ink, it has this, it has that. This is people wouldn't buy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Oopsie. Sorry.
It's
I just
okay.
had
Sorry
an
about that.
accident right there.
But what do you have
Okay.
to say about like picking your target audience?
Yeah, so your target audience is actually important. And when you were talking about the different channels, Facebook and all of that, that occurred to me. Just give me a second. I'm trying to figure this fish. Yeah,
No
voila.
problem at all.
We're good now. So talking
Okay.
about picking your audience, your target audience is based on what needs you've identified and what needs you're feeling, because those who need your products, that is your target audience. So you're not going to be communicating to other people different from the people that you're serving or that you're providing your services or products to. So your target audience is really those people that you're serving actually. So sometimes people just want to be on social media or in the newspapers just for the sake of being in the newspapers. So I'll probably ask you, you want an article in the Guardian, why? Who are you trying to speak to in the Guardian, through the Guardian? Who reads the Guardian? And why do you want to talk to them? What benefit? What do you want them to do when they've read that? So those are very important decisions to make. Your target audience is your audience that you're serving, not people who want to hear about you, or the people that you could potentially attract. For example, you talked about pitch sensation, and who are you talking to? Who do you want to reach? Who are the people who can buy it or you want to sell it to? That will be your target audience. So when you're thinking about your target audience for communications on social media, you need to think about what you're offering and who needs what you're offering. The other part of it that I wanted to mention is that when you know your target audience, that determines what channel you use. So, are you going to go on Instagram or Pinterest and all of that? You need to think about where your audience is. Your audience determines where you want to go.
Yeah.
So, you know your business, where is your target? So you take your message to that target audience, where they want to be reached, and you speak to them how they want to be spoken to. That is very, very important for when you want to choose that. So that is part of your plan. I always say, you need a stakeholder plan, right? A stakeholder map, right? You
Yeah.
need to map your audience, map your target audience. That's where I'm happy that you talked about creating shared value. Where does your business intersect with your customers' need? And if it doesn't intersect with customer need, then you don't have any business at all, really. So
So
you have to
true.
draw that stakeholder map.
Yeah.
Who are you trying to reach? Why are you trying to reach them? What do you have to offer them? What insight do you have about them? Those are the critical things to think about.
I completely agree. Oh my God. This was such a synergistic conversation. I love it. I think the only
Exactly.
thing that I have recently not recently, for the last 2 years, I've been actively pushing is that depending on kind of business that, in fact, actually for most businesses, you can have a target or customers. So
Customers, yeah.
I recently just found out, well, not recently again, like maybe 2 years ago, I became more deliberate and I noticed that out of your audience, who are the people who need your service and product or the solution that you're offering, you have this extra layer, corner of people, probably like 10% or less of that audience who can actually afford it
Yep.
and can afford it again. Because I've been getting a lot of questions like that from my community where they go, oh, I'm talking to my target audience. They keep saying I'm expensive. Well, they might be your target audience, which is why they're following you and they like taking your free resources and joining your mailing list and all those interesting things. But they're not necessarily your customers. There are a lot of us that follow Ferrari. We follow Ferrari, but me and Ferrari, we know at the moment that Lamborghini, you know, but between I and Ferrari, we know that I am not their customer yet. So I'm just like an aspiring customer, but I'm not there yet. And so because I'm not there yet, they would be wasting, they're not wasting their time, but they will not be able to put that kind of extra effort that they need to put, maybe communicating with me via mail or giving me the discounts that I need or the kind of resources that I need to be able to access
to close the deal.
So exactly. So I need to be very aware. So because I can't go to Lamborghini and be like, why is it so expensive? Now 100 million is too much for a car. Can you reduce it because of me? It's not going to make any sense. So you just want to, at the back of your mind, know that there will always be your audience, but there will always be your customers as well. And your customers are the people who need it, are willing and able to pay for it. Willing and able is so important. Like Dangote can afford pure water, but he is not willing to pay for pure water. And so it's just like you need to know the difference. Like some people are able to pay for it, but they're not willing to pay for it. But there are people who are willing to pay for it, but they're not also
but they can't afford to.
Your customer must be willing and able to pay for it, but they shouldn't just stop there. They must be able to pay for it again. So think about like iPhones, how iPhone customers can every year they can update. Those are the real customers, not the people who are buying the fairly used.
Exactly.
Those are the customers of the fairly used markets. But the iPhone customers are the people who can afford to update every single time there's a new release. I think they have like a 50% retention rate on buyers. Like the people who buy before can buy again. So you want to just keep that at the back of your mind. And the fact that a 50-year-old bought your product, even if your product was targeted at a 20 to 40 or 20 to 30-year-old mark, doesn't mean that your target audience has changed to 50. That person is just an exception.
On the
and your target market should never be everybody. In fact, once you've said your target market is everybody, you just scattered everything.
Right.
You just scattered everything. But you see that we've spoken about communication to the outside world. We have like 5 minutes, Abby. Sorry. Let's just quickly just talk about communicating internally, because as much as you communicate outside, you also need to be communicating with your team members and the people who are part of your process. So I'll let Victoria speak to that, because I mean corporate communications and all that.
Yes, so just quickly, communicating to your internal audience is actually your first thing to do. Your internal audience is your first audience, and you must include them in your communication. So they must understand the vision, they must understand the dream. You must already win their hearts and their minds before you go external. And I think for want of time, I just want to keep it there. And maybe if we have another opportunity, we'll talk more about internal audience. But bear in mind that your internal audience, your staff, your people, your suppliers, they are your first audience. Your shareholders, your co-founders, they are your first audience, and you must effectively and efficiently communicate with them, win their hearts and minds, and be sure that they are going on the outside with you and they're co-communicators with you, because the whole business owns the communication. It doesn't sit in one department, and it doesn't sit with one person. One key thing I've learned along the way.
True, so true.
Wow.
And that includes your vendors as well, guys. That includes your vendors. Don't deliver a Chanel bag with Okada. Like if you're selling luxury. If you're selling luxury, keep it luxurious all through the process. So pick your vendors super wisely as well. Chidali, you want to
I don't want this to end, because there's so many things dropping here that I'm sure everybody feels the same way. But unfortunately, we have few minutes left. So if you're just joining us, a quick recap. One of the things I learned here is the first thing you have to do is start. That's like the key thing. And then be yourself, find your niche. You don't have to copy or do anything that, is out of who you are. Understand your audience, and that way you'll be able to actually know what they want, and then ask questions, get feedback from your audience. Now, I think what stood out for me the most was this starting process. Like you get so many illustrations because sometimes we think, we have to be perfect before we start, right? And it just reminded me of something very, very important that always replays in my head. Done is better than perfect.
Yes.
And sometimes when we plan things, it just starts. So that is the key thing I learned here today, and I'm sure you learned a lot. Now, if you're just joining us, as I'm sure a lot of people didn't start with us, you can get the recording of this session by simply clicking the link on our bio or going straight to www.sparkng.com/brand voice. So once again, welcome to this Spark Ignite series. If you're just joining us, it is a weekly capacity building virtual live session taking place every Friday at 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. This is really amazing. And then the next session we're going to have is on the art of closing. You don't want to miss it. You're going to be learning a lot of things, how to sell and close a deal, how to maintain customer relationships, and a lot more. And most importantly, if you don't know, Victoria sat down with us a while ago for a master class where, yes, on the subject of power words, the art of communication. So be sure to head to www.sparkng.com/masterclass and gain access. Now, the important thing to know here is we have a little gift for you. Once you click that link on our bio, that gives you 2 months access to the Spark platform. And that also, don't forget to join the Ignite movement. Just click the link on the bio or go straight to www.sparkng.com so you can gain resources that will help you start, sustain, and scale your business. My name is Dalu, okay, and on behalf of the Spark,
let's give assignment. Please, everyone, if you're on this live right now and you've been here for a while, take a screenshot. We're going to post for you in 2 minutes. Take a screenshot, tag the Spark, tag me, but share the most important thing that you've learned and you're taking away from this session. Are you guys ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Yes.
Okay, guys, we're trusting you to take screenshots. Okay, we're trusting you.
We're looking forward to it.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria and Blessing. We are truly honored to have you. And on behalf of the Spark, have a lovely, lovely weekend.
You
Bye.
too.
Talk to you soon, Blessing.
Bye.
Bye.